It is a privilege to introduce our presenter this evening. This is really her home turf, and she is one of us. Many of us have known her and called her a dear friend for quite a long time. Others, however, may need just a bit more of an introduction. Jennifer Comeau grew up near Buffalo, New York, in that area, and so she is not a native Manannán. But like many of us, maybe all of us, she is truly a Manor in spirit, and has made her home here for the last 26 years or so. Still counting. She was not born in Ireland either, but the blood of Ireland courses through her heart, both physically and, more importantly, spiritually. It may surprise some of you that she is a highly educated and well-regarded engineer, and for decades was a corporate executive and Fortune 500 influential leader. But in the fullness of time, her true calling of the Spirit began to emerge, moving from seed to bloom to flower. And she began to write songs and sing them, and to create stories and to tell them, and to align with the deep reverence for the earth. And that is spelled with a capital E. Today she is a certified forest therapy guide, obviously singer, songwriter, and author speaker, and the creative spokesman for the earth and for all of its inhabitants, human and otherwise. Her nature-themed children's book, The Inside of Me, was created with enthusiasm, and just off the press Irish novel with original songs, don't miss those songs, A Moon in All Things has been met with well-deserved acclaim, which continues to grow as people become more aware of it. And if you haven't read it yet, you have a treat coming. The Kirkus Reviews says this about it, and I quote, "Atmospheric and beguiling, Comeau uses the Irish setting and tales of the other world to craft an ethereal, fable-like narrative. Morrigan, friends, family, and fellow villagers come alive, fitting perfectly into the picturesque village. Morrigan's frustration with the imposed limit of her gender adds a fascinating dimension to this spooky tale in the location. Geraldine White Dreyfus, an Academy Award-winning film producer who many of you know personally, has responded to the book with 3 carefully selected words: tears, sighs, fabulous. But, of course, you didn't come here tonight to hear about Jen. You came to hear her. And it's our pleasure and our privilege to warmly welcome Jennifer Comeau.
I feel a little bit like Jesus returning home to Nazareth. I don't know, is that sacrilege? Thank you all for being here. And before I start, a word of thanksgiving. Debbie Lamb, would you mind standing up? Oh, there she is. She's standing. She's in the back of me. I want to acknowledge Debbie because this speaker series, she has organized it for the past several years. Took that baton from myself and from Anita and from others and has kept it going 24 years we're in. What an incredible thing. And this is your chance. If you were involved at all, stand up to thunderous applause just for a half a second. Anyone who's been involved, please rise and we'll greet you with. Hooray. And somebody please remind me to thank John at the end. So gosh. I'm going to get started here with a little PowerPoint presentation. And it starts with the origin story for this novel. It literally was a dream. And I am a big dreamer. And I awoke one day in the middle of my corporate crazy life with 4 scenes lingering in my mind from the dream. The first was a woman standing on a cliff overlooking the sea. The second was a non-human being, a wolf, staring at me. The third was a group of people gathered around what looked like a sacred grove, some sort of ceremony. And the fourth was an image that I know very dearly. It is of the Burren in Ireland. And who's seen the Burren in Ireland? A few people. What you may not know, is the Burren is a very unique landscape. It's a World Heritage Site. Because unlike the rolling green hills of Ireland, this is a limestone scree that is filled with exotic flowers, orchids, rare flowers you wouldn't find anywhere else except for Iceland. So somehow, this land moved across the ocean and attached itself to Ireland and is now this beautiful place. So why is this important? Because I knew then, when I beheld that image in my mind, that this was a story that wanted to be told, set in Ireland, the land of my ancestors. But I was a working, crazy person, corporate America, and I was working for a lot of different clients at the time, and I didn't have time, nor did I have a single thought that I had the capacity or capability or skill to write a story. I was in doing running things, project management, etc. And so I did what anyone would do. You go to your teacher and say, what is this all about? And so I went to my teacher, Dina Metzger, and she did what a lot of wise crones do. She opened up her divination kit, her I Ching, and she rolled some coins. She rolled those coins 6 times and pulled open the book of divination and interpreted those results. And she said, the way is open to you. Just start. And so I did. And that was 10 years ago. And so I want to sing a little song that I wrote with my Shruti box. This is a bellows instrument. Very easy to play, probably the easiest instrument if you want to play an instrument. This would be the one. And this really encapsulates the song of the Irish people. And it's called, Oh Sing the Song Your Mother Taught You. In fact, the words, I believe, are on the next slide. But before I start, let me just say that my mother's side is chock full of Irish relatives. So my mother was a Matamore, that's Matimo on the top right. Her mother was a McMahon from Clare. Her mother was a Hamley from Cork. Her mother was a Lane, and her mother was an O'Mahony from Dunmanway, Ireland. So my great-great-great-grandmother, I know where she lives and I know where she was born. And this is really to her and to all the Irish people. And I must have hid the words, so you'll just have to listen carefully. Oh, sing the song your mother taught you with her dying breath, about the sacred herbal remedies in Ireland's sweet glens, to ask before receiving, to honor invisible realms. Soon the flowers forsaken amid the silence of the realms. Soon the flowers forsaken amid the silence of the realms. Oh, sing the song your father taught you from his wayfaring days, about the souls estranged from their homeland in search of golden shores, with scant few treasures to carry and leaving loves behind. Soon as orphans on the waves, no anchor can they find. Oh, sing the song the ancestors sang with warm breath so sweet, of the fierce noble lineage that still resides in here. Their whispers of encouragement, remember your wisdom stores, and dream fair life into being as the skylark's song soars, and dream fair life into being as the skylark's song soars. Oh, sing the song your mother taught you, rocking you to sleep, of the sacred ways of kinship inside the world tree. Believe in the marvelous enchantment lingers still, when the land and her beings greet you, know you are home free. When the land and her beings greet you, know you are home free. Now we're in the area of Celtic Ireland. You feel it?
You have us in your web.
And I'm going to drop us in to what was 1820s Western Ireland really? What was it like? So, of course, this land in Western Ireland was under the colonizing forces of England. And King George was in power. And have any of you heard of the penal laws? The penal laws were a set of laws that were enacted in the 1700s to try to tame the Irish, to conquer the land. And the penal laws were absolutely impoverishing and devastating for the people, because most importantly, the land they owned, the land that their generations of clansmen owned, was stolen from them and leased and subleased to very tiny, tiny proportions that they had to pay taxes on and pay money to the landowners, who were now Protestant Englishmen. So the poverty was incredible. An example of 2 or 3 of those laws that were still in effect in 1820s: no Irish could own land, no Irish could run for office, no Irish could be a professional in any capacity, except for healthcare, some kind of nurse or doctor, probably because the Protestant colonizers did not want to tend to the Irish people when they were sick. The Irish could not own guns, either to hunt or to protect themselves, and they could not own a horse of greater value than 5 pounds. These were the kinds of laws that were in effect, and this is what was going on in 1820s Ireland. Eventually, those laws, the penal laws, were repealed, but at the time of my story, they were still in effect. And of course, there was this thing called the Industrial Revolution that was just happening. So culturally, I'm going to read something to you from Sir William Wilde that was published in 1815. And it's from his book, Ireland, Her Wit, Peculiarities, and Popular Superstitions. And he wrote, and this was circa 1850, a wild and daring spirit of adventure, a love of legendary romance, a deep-rooted belief in the supernatural, an unconquerable reverence for ancient customs, and an extensive superstitious creed has, from the earliest times, belonged to the Celtic race. We cannot therefore wonder that among those but partially civilized people, they still had a belief in the marvelous, despite all of their impoverishments and punishing poverty. So the belief in the marvelous still lingers to the present day. And for me to write a book set in Ireland in the 1820s meant it required magical realism. Some would say, oh, it's a historical fantasy. Well, I would argue the case that it was real to the Irish people in the 1820s. So here's a few examples of the way their societal norms and their belief systems. Their head schools had a very, very rigorous, I was amazed when I was doing research, had a very rigorous set of learning languages and maths, nothing at all like what children today have to learn. So that was interesting. We know that the Catholic Church was growing. In 1820s Ireland, there actually were very few priests. Priests were just coming into the, the strategic planning of the Roman Catholic Church. And they were trying to get more and more priests into Ireland. The old ways and traditional practices were beginning to seem superfluous and superstitious and no longer desired. And this was before microbiology, so anything that befell a person, an illness or some misfortune, it was blamed on the good people. Who has heard here of the good people? John, yeah. The good people was the respectful title that was given to the fairies, the leprechauns, the wee chap with the Frenchman's cap, the whole pantheon of sylvan beings that were thought to be there in existence but invisible to them. And we'll talk about some of the things that they did. But so if anything happened to someone that was not of a good nature, they would say, oh, it was the good people. It was the good people. And there were certain times when you would not want to be outside, especially around the big Celtic festivals, because that's when the good people would go riding at night and all, making all kind of mischief. So it would not behoove you to be out there. And for women, their only hope was to find the best man in the village so that they could become a wife and mother. And that was their very narrow set of choices. Redheads were also viewed as very unlucky. And so you'll discover soon that Morrigan is a redhead. And they were so unlucky that they were not allowed, or really, really strenuously cautioned not to go down to the docks, to the quay, because that that seeing a redhead before a ship launched for the day to fish would be viewed as unlucky, and they believed that the seas would storm and you could die at sea, which is what happens to Morgan's grandfather at sea. So a few more of these traditional practices. They had their own divining tool. It was called tossing of the cups. Back in that day, their tea was loose leaf, no tea bags, of course. And so the elder in the room, someone might say, "Oh, can you toss the cups for us, Mammo, grandmother?" And the grandmother would take the dregs of a teacup in her left hand and flip it, do this 3 times counterclockwise, dump the dregs onto a plate, and then look inside the teacup and read the teacup leaves as though they were hieroglyphics. That was their way of finding an answer to a question that they weren't sure of what they should do. As I talked about the good people, there was a particular practice that they had of if there was a swirl of dust in the road, their belief was that that was the good people traveling. And so they would stop and they would thrust their thumb between these 2 fingers. You can all do it if you like. Make a little kind of like a cross. And they would say, "God between you and all harm." And it was meant both to show respect to the good people, but also as a protection for themselves. Whiskey and oat bread were often left out at night with the embers still glowing, so that if the good people should decide to take up a little party in your house, they would have something to eat and something to drink. And they had these superstitious rituals, such as taking sod, which is turf, which was their precious burning for their fires, which were always going because it's damp in Ireland, if you didn't know, really damp. And they would take a precious piece of burning sod and they would move it under the pregnant cow's belly 3 times as a sign of good luck for an easy, safe birth. Or they put it over the nest of eggs 3 times to ensure that the hens or the chicks hatched. Or around a churn of butter 3 times in the direction clockwise, which is the direction of good fortune. They had a very, as you know, we still celebrate May Day, Beeltana, which is just a cross-quarter year, as well as Samhain, which is around our All Hallows Eve, as well as the solstices and the equinox. So they were very much attuned to the earth's rhythms and cycles. And in the case of the fishermen especially, if they had had a difficult fishing day or if something bad had happened, they'd want to get together and talk. So what they would do, someone would put a piece of sod in a window ledge, and that would signify that they've got the good stuff. Come on over, let's talk about it. Finally, for anyone who left Ireland, they had the belief that every soul wanted to be buried with their forefathers, wanted to be buried on their sacred land, and that if anyone left the country and died overseas, that their souls were considered orphan spirits and were considered not at rest. So they were grieved most wretchedly if they left their homeland. And we all know about what happened during the Great Potato Famine, how many people, 1/3 country left their homeland. Okay, so here's a map of the town. This is a fictitious village, approximately where Kinvara is, which is North Clare, South Galway, on the west coast of Ireland. And it's in the book, in case you'd like to see it. There's also a bigger image in the back, if you'd like to see it. But this is a fishing village, Belle Gortnadarach, which is, again, I said it, fictitious. And I wanted the oak to be in there because there's a grandmother oak that's a very important character, a place where Morgan would often go to just talk to the tree and see what came back to her. And enter Morrigan Lane. Against that backdrop of 1820s Ireland, she was born in a very chaotic birthing situation. NCAL, I guess I'll start from the bottom. NCAL, which meant the amnio sac was still around the head, her head. And it was a very harrowing birth. Now, normally in Irish belief, anyone who's born NCAL, they are considered the most lucky people. Morrigan was born breech. So villagers were not sure whether this was a lucky birth or this was a cursed birth. She was born with something of the sight, they would have said at the time, a psychic knowing, a psychic capacity, in the lineage of her great-grandmother, who was also called Isla, the great healer. She could find ways of healing people that were not quite understood, and yet everyone came to her great-grandmother for healing. She's the daughter of fisherman Tommy Lane and mother Betha, and at 16 years old, I could not make her any older, because at 16 you were almost just about married with 2 kids by then. So I had to kind of just make her realistically 16 at that age. She longs to be a sea captain because her father feeds her imagination with stories of Grania Nimaili, Grace O'Malley is the anglicized word, who was a sea captain, a clansman's daughter, who fought Elizabeth I, Queen Elizabeth, and tried to protect Ireland from the invading colonizers. And she was very unusual being a woman. And so that's what Morrigan longs to do. Okay. This is an example of what might be their home, the very quintessential half door that they'd open up, often red. Often the grandmother, the elder in the house, would be outside spinning in her spinning wheel. And there would be a thatch roof cottage, just very, very, very humble, one room. And the image on the right might look like what the hearth was, with the bed there for the eldest, the grandmother perhaps, the cupboard to the left. Morrigan slept with her sister, her older sister, underneath, in a pallet underneath the eaves. So up a little ship ladder, and in this very narrow, slide yourself in almost like it's a drawer. That's where Morrigan would have slept. The rest of the women in the Lane household, the grandmother was there, Morrigan's mother, Betha, beautiful woman who was very bitter because she had longed to marry up, and that did not happen. So she's married to a very poor fisherman. And her older sister, Riona, who also longs to marry a countryman and make of herself a better station. So those are the women. I think that's where I'm gonna stop. Yeah. Oh, so in the first chapter, I'm just gonna do 3 brief readings to kind of give you a sense of what Morrigan was up against in this time frame. And one thing to know, because I'm not going to read the first chapter, I'll let you read that, is that in the first chapter, Morrigan has an adventure the size of her dreams. And it involves stealing her Uncle Cullum's fishing boat, a redhead, captaining a fishing boat. So with that in mind, with that as context, I'm going to, she got in trouble, by the way. She was caught. And she was promised all kinds of punishments. And in fact, the schoolmaster Winnet, who is a very prickly character and feels threatened by what Morrigan knows, is in this scene, this is chapter 11, in this scene, she's at the school with her schoolmaster Winnet. What you need to know is her sister Riona, that's her sister's name, okay? So this is called a female's place. Schoolmaster Winnet stood in the hovel-turned-charity school. A slate tablet leaned against crates. At the top of the tablet, he had drawn the Greek alphabet, and below, what appeared to be a sentence in Greek. With no desire to teach poor females, Winnet had arranged what few there were in the back, all except for Riona, who occupied a front row seat called the master's seat, because he had selected her to assist him with lessons. I'm just gonna shut this one off because I'm getting too much feedback because I'm moving down. So this is gonna take up, okay. When Winnet had asked the Lanes for permission to instruct Riona in school mastery, a rare opportunity for a woman, for a female, they had agreed on one condition, that Morgan obtain advanced schooling too. Winnet strode toward the back of the room this day and began his lecture. This morning, I feel it important to discuss the philosophies of Aristotle, because Aristotle reminds us of a female's place in a family. Aristotle wisely wrote, Winnet punctuated each word, the relation of male to female is by nature a relation of superior to inferior and ruler to ruled. That was Aristotle's quote. The room broke out into titters. Winnet's voice rose above them. It is men who rule the waves, not women. Thus, when one of our females upsets the balance of place by stealing a pucan, a whole village upheaves. Isn't it so, Morrigan Lane? Isn't it true you've forgotten your place? A few of the boys sniggered and turned to look at Morgan. A flush spread through her body, and she felt the heat of it on her cheeks. I want to disappear. She bit the inside of her cheek and looked down. Then her face blazed. No! She dug her fingernails into her palms. When Winnet leaned over to help William Cullen with his Greek, Morgan slipped out the school door and ran toward a limestone ridge overlooking the bay. She erupted in a roar of outrage. She imagined the glare her teacher would direct at Riona in her absence, and how her sister would report Morgan's breach of etiquette as soon as she returned home. To her sister, being proper mattered. In her brother, Ruark, she'd have found an ally. His mischief held no bounds. But he wasn't in advanced school. Uncle Cullum now relied on him as his first mate. Already Morgan regretted her deed. She'd be in trouble again. Schoolmaster Winnet's snobbery tore at her insides. Plus, he taught useless things. He'd known nothing of the edible leaves of sea purslane until she'd showed him, and his insistence on clean hands seemed overly fussy. Unsuited to teach the children of fishermen, thought Morgan. Nature is teacher. Kathleen's kind of learning is best. Climbing to the cliff's edge, Morgan squinted into the bay's bright blue, scanning its vastness for signs of her father, brother, and the other fishermen, even though they were beyond her vantage point. She unraveled her wrap to allow a briny breeze to caress the nape of her neck. As she plunked down on the spring grasses, Morgan felt the renewed intensity of the earth. Winter had lost its power, and rebirth was upon the land. Finally relaxed, Morgan put her face to the sun and whooped. So that's what Morgan's up against, the girl with the second sight and dreams. And now entering a gentry, a member of the ruling upper class, to have anything to do with what they would have called a peasant girl, peasant woman. The Irish would not have called themselves peasant, they would have called themselves poor. But the English rulers would have called them peasants. So Mistress Mary hears Morgan's whoop and hears from her point of view. She's meeting Morgan, the lonely landowner's daughter, meeting the rebellious fisherman's daughter. And the name of the chapter is They Share a Secret. Mistress Mary, 16-year-old daughter of Sir Martin, breathed heavily from her mare's jump over a stone wall that bordered her father's estate. Wouldn't mother have been proud, Devona? She spoke to her horse. Frowning, she slowed to a canter. We'll keep this jumping a secret from father, won't we? She tossed the blonde ringlets that framed her porcelain face, and her hazel eyes flashed. At the sound of a shout, Mary reined in her horse. She spied a peasant woman on the cliff's edge. The shout sounded full of, yes, joy. Mary wondered when she had been last joyful. It seemed a pinnacle emotion coming over a person when some ineffable desire was fulfilled. Mary recalled a happier time when at age 12, she and her parents had picnicked along the Kilcogan River on a linen blanket under an old willow tree. She and father had burst into laughter as mother told a story imitating Aunt Phoebe's nasal-sounding English. They had eaten a sumptuous supper of roast duck, drizzled figs, and pound cake. It had been a carefree day, and Mary had been certain such times would last forever. But that was before her mother had been banished from their lives for something about which her friends whispered the Latin word, infidelitas. Now Mary's tutor scolded her. Joy, indeed exuberance of any kind, is unseemly for a lady. Mary's bout of restlessness coincided with her father's frequent trips to Parliament for work. When he was gone, she had no way to call upon her girlfriends in Clare, and was often alone in the big manor house, except for the servants and her tutor's visits. And her tutor was not her friend, as the formidable woman had once made plain. Mary looked again at the young woman on the cliff. It was proper behavior for a landowner's daughter to return to the estate and not engage in conversations with someone of the lower class. Epidemics are rampant among the lower classes, she'd heard her father say. But straightening her deep green riding dress that accentuated her tiny waist, Mary shrugged, clicked tongue to teeth, and moved her reins to signal the mare in the direction of the young woman. At Devona's snort, the young woman scrambled to her feet and turned, brushing bits of grass from her dusty red skirt. She curtsied. Good day to you, Mistress Mary. Heat rose to her cheeks. Hello there, said Mary, struck by the woman's startling green eyes against her freckled skin and her unusual facial scar. She noted the woman's rapt attention on her finely chiseled gray mare. Go ahead and pet Devona. She'd like it, said Mary, sitting taller and proud in her side saddle. Devona, a perfect name for this queen. Morgan reached out to touch the horse's mane. She likes you. Look at her nuzzle your hand, and you've nothing to give her. The woman, Morgan, remained silent. Tell me, you seemed so carefree just now. Why? Have you been asked to be Eltona? No, mistress. 'Tis just the sun is shining, and the breeze carries a bit of warmth this day, and it's lovely to see the bay blue like the sky. Oh, and the bees have become foraging for their nectar, and she stopped. Mary gazed out to sea. No beau, then? Once more heat rose to the woman's cheeks. There's a farm boy, Finn, but I think he's sweet on me a little. She shoved her renegade curls back into her bun. I'll bet he's sweet on you, with your eyes green like the hills, and if you wear your wrap around your chin like so, Mary motioned with her hands, no one will notice your disfigurement. Morgan has a big scar from her birth. At this, the woman dipped her chin and moved her head to the side. Removing her hand from the horse's neck, she began to back away. Oh, don't go. I like it. It's interesting. It's like a stem with a flower at the top. It makes you special. Besides, Mary's voice lowered, everyone has something they want to hide. A question in her eyes, the young woman stared at the mistress. Mary hesitated and replied, even me. Look here. She removed her left glove and a gray, pebble-sized protrusion grew on the top of Mary's otherwise flawless middle finger. I've got a wretched wart on my hand. It's despicable. I don't know what to do about it, and this year is my coming out year. Kathleen can heal this, said the woman. The crooked woman? I've heard she invokes curses. She's an herbalist and a midwife. Sure as the sun rises, she can heal your wart. She gives me the shivers all hunched up over as she is. She's the wisest person I know. The girl is quite bold, thought Mary. I'll consider it. What is your name, then? Morgan. It's Morrigan Lane. Mary chuckled. So it's to you our piglet Shauna escapes, puts overseer Eben in such a huff. Morgan smiled at the mention of the young pig who seemed to prefer her company to the posh livery at the estate. Abruptly, Mary looked back toward the manor. I must go, Morrigan Lane. I oughtn't be riding outside the estate. Shh. She put a finger to her lips, and it now seemed they shared a secret. Turning, Mistress Mary urged Devona into a canter. Morgan stared after horse and rider as they grew smaller in the distance, and then cleared a wall, gone from sight. So we're setting up the world of Morrigan Lane, and I'm just going to show you a few more pictures from our research, and then we can jump into questions. Okay, so Brad, hide your eyes. This is my horrible drawing of Kathleen. I am not a very good artist. So Kathleen, the crooked woman, is the mentor. She is in the mentor role, and she's so hunched over from a spinal disease in her youth that she cannot see people's faces. And so she senses into their moods, and she gives them sky descriptions, like thunderstorms. You're a thunderstorm today, because she can't see the sky very easily either. So that's Kathleen the crooked woman. Connie McDonough is the pub owner, and he has a relationship with his wife, Kate, who is deceased. So, in the words of that movie we saw, what was it called? He Talks to Dead People. And these actually are the pictures of my ancestors. So Kate, in this case they were O'Rourke's, Connie O'Rourke and Kate O'Rourke. Connie was a pub owner, and as my mother used to say, he was his own best customer. And she said, you know, your grandmother called him the blackguard. And so I actually patterned them after those anecdotes my mother used to tell me about the ancestors. And the travelers are in a scene in the book. So those would have been the Roma, the gypsies who lived in Ireland. Beautiful people and their children. So there's a scene there in the book that features them. By the way, this is my storyboard, and I was joking to some people earlier that, you know, this might sell at Sotheby's. In maybe 10 years for a few $1 million. So what I did is I allowed this storyboard to guide me. I would literally look at a character that, of course, I lifted from the internet. By the way, that all of these Morgan photos are photos. Don't take pictures because I probably would be in trouble. But I would look at the picture and I would say, in this scene, what is true for you, Morgan? What is true for you, Betha, in this scene? And I would listen and start dictation. So Cormac and Finn are the McDonough's sons, two of their sons. So I would look at these research photos and see what they wore. They were sorting potatoes here. They were curing herring. This was the Galway market on the top right. See what they were wearing, how there was really no market to speak of, no stalls, just kind of crates, and what they might have been wearing back in that day. And Morgan in this story has allies. So this picture here of a Cecil oak I took in 2015 in Glengariff Nature Reserve. And I was just in Ireland 2 weeks ago, and I found the same tree. here she is. This branch on the lower right is now dead, but it's the same tree, and this is a very special tree in the book that Morgan goes to. So again, I feel like they're people to me. The top right is the ancient yew grove where Morgan goes to hear messages from the invisibles. And she's got some messengers that are from the more than human world that also are part of the story. So a few things about the Irish, and they're very well known for their expressions, their sayings, and my mother was filled with them, as were all of her people. So Tommy would say things like, there is no need like the lack of a friend. Or, I'm having trouble with this one. Do you want to advance it, John? Okay, here we go. We Irish have strength and tenacity beyond what the eyes can see. Or, a man is incomplete until he marries. Then he's finished. And Mama would have said, God is nearer to us even than the door. And we're rich in love and the blessings of a beautiful land. And Kathleen, her mentor, would say, there is choice in any life, no matter how confined one might feel. So this buoyancy of the Irish was really incredible. Oh, what happened there? John, are you doing something?
No, it's the blackout button you're hitting by mistake.
Okay. And she'd also say to her, everything is here to teach us, even the biggest and ugliest thing. So think about that as we face some interesting times. Everything is here to teach us. And spirit is everywhere and in every living thing. So that's a little bit about this coming of age tale, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. And we're going to conclude after your questions with just one of the original songs that I wrote, and I recorded with Berklee School of Music musicians in a studio in Boston and also in a studio in Cork, Ireland, just to give you a sense of what one of the songs is like. But first, questions.
So what was that scar that she had?
She was, so in the birth scene, because she was born feet first and had the sac, her grandmother panicked and tore the sac off of the young babe, and as a result scarred her jaw to her chin. So there was a scar there from her birth, which makes her, as she explains in the book, I don't know whether I'm different because I look different, or is it because people treated me different that I've become different? So she wonders about that. Was I always this way, or is it the way they looked at me that made me different?
Jen, what is the significance of the title?
A moon in all things. Well, healing is a big theme in this story. So she learns that part of the message she receives is she must use those gifts she's been born with. That is why she's here, to use her gifts. And so those gifts she's learning the forest medicines, the healing herbs, and those gifts. And so a moon in all things, as we know, the moon is just as powerful when it's new, which it will be in 2 days, new moon, or tomorrow actually, as it is when it's full, invisible, and bright. And so I don't answer it exactly in the book, but her grandmother's the one that says to her, there's a moon in all things. And she begins to wonder if it's the invisible medicine that the plants carry, as well as the visible flowers that are showy. That's a part of what she's really being called to look at. If there's something invisible on the inside when someone's sick, besides just the physical symptoms. So hopefully that answers your question. I can tell you the origin story of the title though, which was I was in Ireland, had just seen the autumn equinox. I had just seen Loch Crew, which is that beautiful burial mound where on September 21st, if there is a sun, it lights up the burial chamber and you can see these gorgeous hieroglyphics things on the inside. You have to crawl on your knees to do it. And I did, and I'd just come out and we were down in the village and I was looking at the butt end of an oil drum, rusty, and it looked like a moon. And I sent that text to my friend Deborah Pfeffer and I said, "Doesn't this look like a moon to you? It's the butt end of an oil drum." And she texted me back and said, "There's a moon in all things, I guess." Question with someone else. Polly, yeah.
I wonder if you ever return to the deep state that you are destroying.
Yeah, thank you for that question. The dreams that Morgan has in here are my dreams. So my dreams are very much a part of what she dreams. And I had to leave my consulting business. I could not have a foot in both worlds. I could not be in this enchanted world in 1820s Ireland and also do diversity and inclusion for the SEC, which is what I have been doing. And it's like, I can't be doing this. So I walked away, and as John will fondly tell you, I took a 99% pay cut to write full time. And in doing that, I was in kind of an enchanted place at times. I would be just riding along and wondering what's going to happen next because I did not have an outline. I was just in the flow of the listening process. And so I would be like, "Now, how is this going to happen?" And I would just get like, "That's what's going to happen. Betha's going to do this. Betha's going to do the mother." So I would just have these like drops of insight that would just come to me. And so that was that process. Yeah, okay, yeah. Karen, yeah.
After reading the book, there's definitely an opportunity for a continued story. Is that something that's a possibility?
Yeah. One of the things that I was guided to do in the listening was not to tie the story up in a nice little Disney-like bow. And so to leave it to the reader's imagination, some of what might happen after the words "the end." And at the same time, yes, there is definitely the energy and the juice, and I've got the scaffolding. This time I'm a little smarter, I've got a bit more of an outline. So I've got the scaffolding for what we would call a sequel. Yes, John.
And how is your book being received in Ireland? And have you had a good chance to review that as to compared to how it's doing here?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was in Ireland for 2 weeks just recently because Vivian de Courcy, who's the film director, very good friend of Maureen's daughter Geraldine, she guided me. She read the manuscript early on. She and Lamar were the first two people to have read my draft manuscript, and both gave me some very excellent advice. And so she invited me back to Ireland to stay with her for the better part of a week. And when a film director, she's a film director, invites you, you don't say no. So I went. And what she said is she'll do everything she can. And I did get the sense that it will take time. It will take some time because she's got her next film all getting teed up and stuff like that. The other advice she gave me is that she said, the Irish like nothing less than an American Irish person writing a story. So I figure my target market is really Irish American as well as nature lovers and herbal medicine people you know, women who like strong characters and things like that. And not, I can get it. Imagine if somebody came to Maine for 4 weeks and then another 2 weeks and then another 2 weeks and then wrote this story about Maine. So somehow you'd kind of get your back up a little bit, wouldn't you, I think? So I'm just not going to worry about that. If they find it, great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't. I don't have, my relatives are too far back. So they came over in 1840s and things like that, and before that. So I'm pretty certain that I can't because I don't have a direct grandparent. However, John has Canadian citizenship, so dual citizenship. So we've got an escape hatch up in Canada. Anyway, what else do I want to tell you? Okay, the research, I mentioned the research. I've got some books in the back. In case you're interested, I worked with a Galway University professor on the research and wanted to have veracity around as much of that as I could. So just wanted to thank him. And if you think, I just want to show you this little picture. Oh, I hope it'll become a word of mouth bestseller. You can have it. I'm going to play that in 2 shakes of the lamb's tail. But what I want to show you, research, okay. And if you think, oh, the writing's gorgeous, this is what the editing process looks like. So, you know, it's a process. Okay. So are we ready? Are we ready to just play the, oh, Debbie?
I have just one question.
Yeah.
Your writing process on a day-to-day basis, so much of it is from your dreams and your imagination and storyboard, but did this require that you set aside 2 or 3 hours a day or 4 hours every day, every morning to produce the book?
Yes, I will say that I tried to follow the energy. So if I wasn't feeling it, I kind of just let that be okay. But for the most part, it was at least 2-3 hours a day, if not all day, kind of writing. Yeah. Oh, yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about your children's book?
Okay. Yeah, thanks for asking. So the children's book, which came out last June, is called The Inside of Me, and it's about what happens on the inside when we go outside. So it's another kind of, nod to the beauty and wonder of being outside. 9 different places in Maine are rendered on the pages by a Maine illustrator, Susie Linden. So the back of the book has the state of Maine and the little, pinpoints for where those places are. And there's also a forest bathing invitation. While you're there, you might want to try this out or do this practice. And it's a Maine illustrator, Maine author, Maine publisher. So, and the me is Maine too.
And you won a gold award.
And yes, it did. I think Lamar mentioned that. Yeah, it did win a Nautilus Gold. 2 of us in the whole country won this year for Nautilus Gold for that category of book, children's books. Thank you. It was prayers, dig it.
Oh, the storyboard, is that what authors do, or that what they have ideas and they like make a board, or was that just your idea?
That's how I did it, because I felt like it's hard to 1820s, right? It's not today. So today you could look around a room and you could, start bringing objects into the scene of something that you're just looking at. I needed something to look at to try to get to that realness of the scenes with the book. So that's what I did, and it did work for me to just let in a way that those characters guide me by just asking that question: what is true for you here? And start to, yeah.
You just quickly mentioned forest bathing, and I was wondering if you could spend just a minute or two telling me what that is. I've never heard of it.
It's a mindfulness walk specifically in the woods. Trees emit something called phytoncides, which is an invisible aerosol, which actually is a chemical that literally boosts our immune system. It reduces our blood pressure, reduces our heart rate. I mean, all the science is finally catching up to what we knew as kids. You just feel good being outside. And so there's a whole contingent of the word Shinrin Yoku comes from the Japanese, and that literally means forest bathing. So in Japan in the 80s, when the executives were living in drawers Monday through Friday and then driving a train home to their, drawers at the train station, that's what they were doing. Working just untold hours and not getting enough exercise, and obesity was on the rise, and diabetes and all this. Literally, the physicians in Japan were prescribing 30 minutes, 3 days a week, get out into nature. So it became a big thing, and it's a pretty big thing now in a lot of places. We've been programmed to conquer the mountain in an hour. You know, that yang, that get your heart going, it's all good. And what if we slow down a little bit? What if we have the yin to the yang of what we've been programmed like? We've been programmed that there's no value in doing nothing in nature, doing nothing. So that's what that is. Thanks for asking. Okay. Oh, Marty?
Just one small thing that I really appreciated was the legend that you put in the back of the book that helped us decipher the names. If you look at them plainly, I couldn't even begin to pronounce them, and I like to try doing that.
Yeah.
But that was so helpful the way you.
Good. I'm so glad. Yeah. And that's thanks to the Galway professor, because I'm telling you, however I was pronouncing them, it's not right either until I actually asked him. He's like, oh no. In fact, what I was calling Oughterard, which is a city north of Galway, I just found out from Vivian, it's Oughterard. So, who knew? How about, do you want to listen to a little song here?
Yeah.
John, I think we just stopped this. And like I said, this is the way the universe works, or God, Spirit. I was on my way home from Buffalo. This was again 10 or so years ago. And flying home, and in comes a guy with a little case, music case. He was late, flustered. Turns out he was sitting next to me, and he said something about his tuba. I gotta get that tuba up. And I said, dude, I don't know what, but that wouldn't fit a tuba. What do you got in there? Is that like a stolen loot, or what is that? And he admitted it was a small violin, and he turns out to be a Berklee School of Music songwriting professor. Sat next to me on the plane. Soon I was asking, do you do pro bono work? No, he doesn't. But he was able to connect me with the Berklee School of Music's Irish violin player, Oisin Macaulay, who's from Donegal, very, very well known. Natalie Haas is one of the best Irish cello players in the world, all in Boston. Maureen McMullen, so the two voices on this, I'm not singing because I wanted real live Irish people. Maureen McMullen teaches at Berklee School of Music, and Nell Nicropine, I'm sure I did not say that right. She lives in Cork, and she's a Shano singer. And Shano singers are the a cappella, the traditional. They would come in when the guys doing the jigs and the reels wanted a break. They'd come in and just sing in the Irish Gaelic a cappella. So both of these voices are on here, and it was such an honor for me to be a part of that process. I had a blast. Anyway, here we go. To conclude.
Somewhere
Elwell Comeau.